Welcome back to the regularly scheduled program. Today we're taking a look at the JA-37D Viggen. This plane is a pretty significant upgrade over the JA-37C Viggen for mainly one reason, and that's the 9Ls. This plane gets 6 AIM 9Ls or 4 9Ls and 2 Sky Flashes. I run 1 Sky Flash, 5 9Ls. I know, curse loadout, not symmetrical. And if you don't want to do that, I would just recommend running 6 9Ls because Sky Flashes today are a little bit underwhelming. The stock grind is absolutely awful, as is pretty much every top tier jet. Your only option is pretty much to GE your modifications, and if that is the route you're going to go, then you should check out the GE for War Thunder app. You complete various tasks in exchange for Golden Eagles. The tasks are going to vary in difficulty. You're going to get more GE depending on how hard it is to do. But even just the easy ones that give you a couple hundred GE, that can go a far way for getting modifications or even getting yourself just one day of premium time to help yourself grind. Find it on the Google Play Store and use my code on screen here for 10 extra Golden Eagles. Other than the fact that this one gets AIM 9Ls and the C Viggen gets AIM 9Ps, which are AIM 9Js, this one has significantly more countermeasures, and in fact, I'm pretty sure that this jet is actually probably the highest number of countermeasures on a top tier plane that is like actually supposed to be a good air-to-air fighter. No, the Harrier GR7 doesn't count. Flight model wise, they share the exact same flight model in the files, so you're not going to feel any difference. I didn't feel any difference, that's for sure. And while the gun is extremely good on the Viggen, unless you're religiously playing the Viggen, you're probably just not going to get the hang of it as far as aiming goes because you have no tracers to teach yourself where to actually shoot in any given shot. The radar is kind of nice, I guess, but in reality, like if you're using Pulse Doppler mode, the Pulse Doppler on the Viggen's radar locks onto chaff, like physically locks onto the chaff like you would see on normal SRC mode. I would like to point out here, I avoid this head-on from the F-14. I wanted to take it, but since he got his missile off first and the range was so close, at best I could have just traded with him there, and I would rather not die. So of course I pull off, I notch, and I push myself right into the ground to avoid that 7F, and now he's got AIM 9Hs, easy enough to flare away. I'm just saving up my speed here to be able to try to make him overshoot, make sure that he's getting up to a fast speed to actually catch up to me, and then I will dump it all at once and get behind him. He just kind of flies away. I shoot an AIM 9L. The AIM 9L rear aspect on the F-14, you're not flaring that unless you drop to 100, well, if you drop all the way down to 0% throttle. That's what I was trying to say. If you're not at 0% throttle, or at least really damn close for a significant amount of time, maybe even a whole like 2 to 3 seconds, you're just not going to flare it. My Sky Flash is faster than the 7F, so I do take the head on there with the F-16 because I managed to get my missile off first. Our missiles just end up hitting each other. It may have even been a 9L for all I know. Either way, I knew I had a chance to actually win that one without dying. But, of course, they missed, and now we have 2 F-16s, one on either side of us. So you just kind of have to bob your head around, see what's going on behind you and around you. I do have teammates in the area, so I don't have to worry about being hyper-focused by anyone. And I'm able to shoot a 9L at this F-16 that is for some reason playing the Italian one. Lorraine over there in his F-16 shot a missile at my teammate. Since my teammate dodged it, I kind of knew that he'd be coming for me, so I get ready to kind of do the same kind of overshoot tactic, and then he ends up flying right in front of us. I don't control my plane well enough to actually get the shot in, which is kind of a shame, and at this point, if he's just going to keep on looping like that, I am never going to catch him. I'm going to continue chasing him just to hold my positional advantage and hope that he does something else, like veer off for a teammate or try to extend away, and then I would actually have a shot. But seeing that he kind of knows what he's doing somewhat here for this 1 versus 4, I'm just going to sort of dip down, try to get some more energy, and see if I can catch him going after a teammate or extending away. Eventually he's going to have to. It is 1 versus 4, and he does, but this F-16 actually knows how to flare, and none of my 9Ls hit, and he eventually just runs back to base. However, not before another F-14 pops up on my map. I'm looking the wrong way, and I was like, where is he? No, well, if you actually look the right direction, there he is. He shoots a missile, I'm able to dodge it, takes a full commit head on, and I don't get any more kills this game because, like I said, this F-16 just goes back to his airfield and then gets killed by a teammate. Very interesting gameplay indeed. The Viggen is one of those planes that I'd always kind of liked as far as flight performance goes because it is very much a jack of all trades, master of none, and what that means for somebody that's somewhat competent at top tier is that you can usually outdo any given aircraft with one aspect or another, even if you're not technically the best at it. Your skill difference is going to make up for the fact that you don't have a superiority advantage, and as long as it's good enough, that's all you need to actually have, and then again, player skill takes over from there. The issue with the C Viggen though is that the missile loadout is just so beyond garbage for today's top tier that it really was not seen as very viable in my eyes, at least. This Viggen absolutely corrects that, and I had always said that 6.9Ls on a Viggen would be an extremely powerful plane, and since the F-16 in the MiG-29 came out, is it extremely powerful? Not really, but it is still amongst the best of the kind of old generation of top tier planes. I'm talking like the MLD, the EJ Kai, you know what I mean by the old planes. Basically, the only planes that I would consider new top tiers is the F-14, the F-16, the MiG-29. Of course, the D Viggen doesn't even compare to those. Those three just kind of run top tier right now. But compared to everything else, this plane is pretty good. You retain the good enough flight performance of the C Viggen, and I do mean the letter, not like an ocean or naval, the designation C Viggen. And now you actually have really good missiles amongst the best at top tier, at least as far as IR missiles are concerned. And I do carry one Skyflash for those close range head-ons that I think I might be able to catch somebody off guard, or if I know that they don't have any radar missiles themselves. It's not bad to have, but I will say that 6.9Ls is probably honestly more worth it than carrying even one Skyflash, because IR missiles still just kind of rule. You can see, if somebody shoots you with an IR missile that is just far enough away, or you're not looking directly at their area, you're not going to see it coming, and you're going to die every single time. That's pretty much how I always die at top tier anymore, because there's 300 million things going on at once, and you simply can't be looking everywhere at one time. And if you don't get RWR warning to let you know that a missile's coming, sometimes you just can't defend what you don't know is there. Sure, AIM-7Fs are pretty strong, but they're just a little bit slow for my taste for me to say that they're one of the best missiles in the game. They are still really good, don't get me wrong, but the R27 ET is pretty much the only SAR that I would say is actually amongst the best missiles in the game, purely because it's got immense speed and tracks really well, pulls really hard, that kind of thing. So what I'm trying to say is 6.9Ls is honestly one of my favorite loadouts at top tier to have, and I think it's definitely one of the most competitive. Here we are facing one of those big scary new top tier jets I'm referring to that kind of run the whole show. MiG-29, I'm starting on his 6, and that is a huge deal as far as if I'm going to be able to actually kill him or not. We do get a nice wing crit in, and now my confidence for this fight has gone up drastically, because having a crit wing at top tier is going to be pretty critical in a dogfight. And the low speed control at the MiG-29, the low speed pool I should say, just is not there compared to that of the Viggen, and since he's slowed down that much trying to make me overshoot, all I have to do is actually manage my speed and not overshoot, and I will stay behind him and get a gunshot in every single time. Managed to check my surroundings just in time to avoid death there from that incoming enemy, and then my teammate saves me from him actually slotting in behind me and holding his air brake, because if he had done that, I was probably just gonna die. I had no energy left, and he was in a better plane. The MiG-29 is here. He shoots a missile, probably thinks I'm not looking, so he pulls off. And I think, actually, I take it back, he was just defending from incoming teammates and going after other people in the area, which is a completely fair thing to do, and honestly how you should play top tier. Unfortunately for him, his team is pretty much gone at this point, so there's very little he's going to be doing when you get into these kind of 1 versus 4 situations. And that's one of the big things I just don't find top tier enjoyable really anymore. Individual player skill is almost meaningless at top tier. It very much has to do with how good are your teammates. You all have to be able to carry your own weight, and then some, and you got to make sure that you kill the enemy team and get a big numbers advantage very early game, and whoever does that wins pretty much every single time. And you being one player, you can't get that numbers advantage for your team by yourself every single game. And so I just find that aspect of top tier a little bit boring. I think that this would be greatly reduced if they just change the player sizes of top tier and make the games a little bit smaller. I'm talking like 8 versus 8, 9 versus 9, not too crazy, but that would be enough to make it a little less chaotic, and I think the individual would have a lot more impact on a top tier match. You see in that clip, I like coming from above people, because a lot of times an above angle, if you're kind of above yourself or above the enemy and not directly in front of them, they tend to not really see you coming, and you can usually fire off a whole salvo of missiles, and a lot of times it's going to result in a good multi-kill. And as I was saying earlier, getting as many kills as quickly as possible is definitely the way to win top tier. Granted, that was not early game by any means, but if you can manage to do that early game, that's definitely what you want to try to do. Cheeky head-on launch there on the J7D. Most of the time, you're not going to be getting head-on IR missile kills. If they're right in front of your plane, they most definitely see you 9 times out of 10, and they're just going to flare it away because, well, if it's head-on, your flare resistance doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter how good the missile is, unless it was on dev server or 27T, of course, but that's not the case today. Managed to get a minor crit into the J8. I think it's a minor crit because it doesn't tell me what I actually damaged in the bottom right of my screen, and therefore I'm not going to be too confident about the kind of damage he sustained as far as what that means for how I'm going to be able to dogfight him. Just as I was saying, head-on IR missile kills don't happen that much. There it is. Granted, he is a premium player, keep in mind, he's probably clueless as is, and that was a very close range launch that probably caught him by surprise, or maybe my missile just hadn't rendered in for him. Trying my best to maintain situational awareness. That is pretty difficult these days, to be honest with you, but I do notice that there's MiG-29 coming in. He shoots a missile with his HMD, I flare it away, and now I'm right behind him, and I get a 9L rear aspect. Now again, MiG-29, pretty much the same story as the F-14. If you're not dropping your throttle down to 0%, or even maybe a little bit higher than 0%, but you do that, and then most importantly, change aspects so that you're not perfectly in the rear position of the 9L. If you don't do that, you're probably not going to be flaring it. So just practice. It's not too difficult to do. Yeah, it's annoying. No missiles you really have to do that with other than the 9L, but if you do actually learn how to, it's really not that big of a deal as far as flaring them. Of course, these are just the games that actually was able to do something and look somewhat entertaining, but like everything at top tier, there were much worse games.